Welcome to the Black Wealth Creator Podcast, where we uplift the Black community through financial education. Welcome back to the podcast. Listen, on today's episode lesson, I just want to talk about job mobility. I came across this article that was talking about the wealth gap, and it was saying that really the wealth gap still exists because there are just not a lot of Black people in high-paying positions. And in the article, they were really just breaking down that it was only about 20 or so jobs that made up about 65% of the wealth gap. And so they were saying that if these 20 or so jobs, that if it was more representative of our population, and if they had that amount of Black people within those certain positions, that it would drastically reduce the wealth gap. And so some of you may ask, what is the wealth gap? So the wealth gap is pretty much just looking at how much Black people make compared to our our white counterparts, but not just white people. It could be that gap of what white Americans may bring in, a Black American, Hispanic American. So just all of those. And as we look at those, we can begin to see that there's a huge wealth gap between the African American community and the white community. And this wealth gap has been analyzed and all types of things to explain its purpose and how it got this far. And some of the bigger components, or some of the biggest some of the biggest culprits that we could say would be, of course, slavery, but also like Jim Crow South, the Great Migration, where Black people just got up and left because it was just, you were being persecuted in the South, and almost all the bad things that happened. So and so it's a Great Migration. They just left all of this prime real estate, prime land, and just left because it just wasn't worth it. And they moved up north in those places. And not that it was better up north, but at least it was quote unquote better. So, but as I've been doing more research, it was even worse up north because they were saying it's better up here, but it still was some some racism and some hate, a lot of racism, a lot of hate going on even up there. So, but to me, I just want to talk about this article in particular, and how they were saying that if more Black people were in those prime positions, that wealth gap would begin to lessen a lot. So they presented two we would say two ways that they think we could increase people in those positions, and then just some of the just recommending some things that companies and stuff could do to actually help implement these things. One, I wrote them down because I don't want to forget. One would be unblock the pipelines to the higher paying jobs. And so basically, whenever you hear the word pipeline, just think about a pipeline, like a water pipe, and it's just water shooting through that. And so they were saying that if there was a easier path for a person, an unskilled person, to become skilled in that craft, then it would be much better. And so they identified three professions three professions. Remember, I just said it was 20 jobs that kind of made up that 65% of our of the wealth gap. They were saying that these three professions, if there were more Black people in these three professions, that would chew up a lot of that 65%. So the three professions that they pointed out were lawyers, teachers, and doctors. And so what they were saying, when you say unblock that pipeline, they're saying making it not easier, because we want to raise lower standards for teachers, lawyers, and doctors. We don't want to do that. But they were saying just making the process less tedious. So, and what we mean by that, they were just saying with lawyers that as the closer you get to the profession, it's just more and more tighter and tighter, almost like a gate there that you have to cross, or like something you have to squeeze through in order to become a lawyer. And so, yes, we want our lawyers to be thorough, and we want them to be knowledgeable, and want them to be, all of the above. We want them to be great at their job and at their craft. But they were saying that maybe some more research needs to be done in terms of why are these like blockages so strong in this profession. And like I said, we definitely want our lawyers to know their stuff, but it's just like, can we have better representation in terms of your approval process or in terms of your acceptance process? Because it was saying that it noticed that normally when it came to time to apply and time to enroll in law school, that's when you start to get a lot of your black candidates who kind of like just give up on the profession, or they find a lower paying job than a lawyer, or in this lower paying job may be a good job, like in terms of what they came from, but it still wasn't the pay of a lawyer, so the article just was saying that, and they were just saying like basically just looking into it, because they said if lawyers were accurately like represented within the community of lawyers, if there was a accurate representation of black people, then we would be looking at 110,000 additional black attorneys. And we know that see, the reason we're talking about wealth gap, of course, because it's black wealth, but also on a like a justice type thing, if there's more black lawyers, then they're gonna sympathize, and it's not like sympathize in terms of letting people off, but they're gonna give back to their communities. They're gonna give free legal service, or they're gonna give free legal advice, or they're gonna tell a young man, hey, you don't want to be this X, Y, and Z because this is gonna cost you this, this, and this, and it's gonna lead them down a different path because because they know better. But also, I feel, and I'm real big on this, and I watched it's a podcast called The Pivot with Fred Channing and I forgot it, Ryan. I think Ryan Clark, and Fred always talks about this. He said expansion leads to exposure. And a lot of times, or exposure leads to expansion, I'm sorry. And a lot of times within the African-American community, with these higher paying jobs, just getting people in those jobs would increase the exposure to young people. And that exposure would lead them to expand into these professions. So if I met a lawyer when I was 10 and he was a black man, then I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I can become a lawyer. If I met a teacher teaching, we meet a lot of teachers, but sometimes it still rubs off on you. You know what I'm saying? Like, teaching is a great profession. It's just a tough one. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but sometimes if you meet a black lawyer or a black teacher, then when you're a child, you might be like, oh, you know what? I can do that. A black architect. Oh, I can do that. So we're just talking about those professions. So next it was talking about teaching and how important that pipeline is and what are some blockades there. A number of blockades for the teaching was, it just was a lack of it. And like I was saying earlier, like, teaching is a great profession, but a lot of people don't want to do it because of I was just listening to this the other day, just because of the overall strain on a person. Like, you have to deal with someone else's child, and then once that child does something bad, you don't have the support of the parents. Normally the parents are like, why did you treat my child that way? And then you don't have the support of the school because the school's like, you shouldn't treat their child that way. And so then it's just like so much pressure comes on the teacher that now our biggest problem is that there was 4% of the research they did in this article, 4% of the graduates of the graduating class in terms of college graduates were teachers. 4%. Like, that's just crazy. That means only 4% are going to go and shape young minds in an academic setting. That's sad, and so within the article, it said they tied back, like, through their research, that people had long-term academic achievement as well as just overall success when a African-American teacher impacted an African-American student. And I know, even personally, I know a lot of my teachers. Thinking back, I remember I like the majority of them. But just thinking back, I remember my second grade teacher. She was a black woman. phenomenal. I mean, like, phenomenal teacher. And then you go to, and I guess I'm thinking back, I'm like, every grade level I had a black teacher, in terms of like, not every grade, but every, like, in elementary school I had a black teacher, in middle school I had a black teacher, and in high school I had a black teacher, who all impacted me. Because like that second grade is like that foundationary grade where you're learning, your numbers and your reading and all that stuff. And she would work with us. So then I got to 8th grade. That was in 2nd grade. In 8th grade, I had a black male teacher, one of the only black male teachers that I ever had, Mr. Bailey. And he was one of the coolest guys. But he was a literature teacher. But it was just so fun in his class. And once again, you're seeing just your representation. They care about you, and it was just a nice experience. And then lastly, and I apologize to any teachers I may have missed. But these are just 3 that really stood out to me. My 2nd grade teacher name was Miss Griggs. But then in 10th grade, I had a teacher, 9th and 10th grade. And I kept visiting this teacher throughout high school. But her name was Miss Gates. And Miss Gates, she, like, 9th grade year, cool teacher, phenomenal. She cares about teaching. 10th grade year, I had her for AP World History. And it was amazing because she was doing her master's work or whatever. So we were actually helping her, me and a couple of guys, we would stay after school, and she was actually teaching us like basic grammar, run-on sentences. I still do them to this day. But during that time, she helped us. And we actually, all of us were maybe like 6 or 7 people passed the AP exam. All 3 of us passed the AP exam, and everybody was like, what? But I really do believe that her help really helped us, and it helped me even further on in college and in life. And so yeah, black teachers are so important. And then the last one was black doctors. And with black doctors, it was just the fact that students didn't pick majors that led to being a doctor. So they didn't choose majors that would help them go on to be in medical school. And of course, you talk about the debt and all that stuff that comes with it. So one of the biggest things in the article that they saw in terms of what was the biggest issue was just poor schooling. And within this article, it said that heavy populated black areas they receive $1,800 less than predominantly white schools or white school districts per child. And so, like, you're like, wait, $1,800? Like, think about what $1,800 can do. Think about the amount of books, the amount of, if you need an outside tutor, if you need, in terms of just the classroom, if we're talking about 20 kids, $1,800, that's $2,000. That's $2,000. That's $4,800. If we're talking about, I think it said 24 kids, $2,000, $48,000 that could go towards a specialist in speech, you know what I'm saying? A specialist in this. So in these areas, you're able to even have more jobs, you know what I'm saying? That can help you towards your speaking, or that can help you towards your learning disability, or your learning to help you overcome any learning challenge. So it was just amazing. Like $1,800 is a lot of money when we're talking about education. And so it can go a long way. And so they were just saying that poor educations. So it was just like, how do we like, if poor education is the issue, how do we? So first of all, of course, you know, like we can wait on the government, whatever, but the main thing is we can overhaul education. That's likely not gonna happen. But one thing we can do is just like business owners and who particularly higher up business owners, like give back to your local communities, go to your schools, tell them what skills and what trades and what things are going to get them jobs when they come out, and that are going to get them good paying jobs. Like teach them the code, teach them to go into accounting, teach them to go into teaching, teach them to go into becoming a lawyer. Expose them to these things, and then we'll begin to see the expansion. So that was one of the ways that they were talking about that could break down this wealth gap. The second way, they were just saying like companies need to have a plan in place where you have low paying jobs transition to high paying jobs. Like, it's that simple. If you have a plan in place, it can be a 5 to 10 year plan. And that way you're going to make sure that person stays there. I mean, I really think a 3 to 5 year plan would be great, but a 5 to 10 year plan, you're going to get your labor from that person, but you're also going to help that person in the process. And it's like, Al, what are you talking about? I'm talking about a floor worker who you begin to cultivate and mold and tell this person, okay, this is your current job, but in 2 years or in a year or so, we're going to start teaching you about this. And then you can begin to transition to this job within 2 to 3 years. And this job is going to pay, it may be paying $20,000 more than what you're currently working. And then you begin to keep going. And then another 2 or 3 years, that job transitions to a job that's, if you compare it to their starting job, it transitioned to a job that's making 3 times more than what they were making. And this is easy for companies to do because you're still keeping, you're saying that they're still going to be doing the same work, but even as they grow, they're going to be able to teach others. Others can come in the same program, and you can just start churning out talent, and your company's going to grow from it. So they were just saying, the exact phrase that they used for this was called create pathways for better careers from low-paying occupations. And I really like that they used the word career and occupation, because a lot of time within the Black communities, and we say occupation as just jobs, and within the Black communities, we just have jobs. We just have jobs. And that's that. We need to transition from jobs to careers. Transition, because jobs get the bills paid. Careers build wealth. Like jobs, and I'm not knocking a job, but I'm just saying, like, it's true that jobs will get the bills paid, and if you properly manage your money, you can still build wealth. But careers is what really actually build wealth. So I hope you gained something from today's lesson, and I am just I'm just excited about what the channel is doing. I'm excited about what the podcast is doing. I know we're going to do great things this year. This is just our first year, and I'm already excited. So I just hope that you like, comment, subscribe. I hope that you found something interesting on today that will help you in your journey of financial growth. This has been another episode of the Black Wealth Creator Podcast, where we help uplift the Black community through financial education. Remember, getting money is easy, but building wealth takes time and effort. Anybody can do it, especially you. Be blessed.